Hello everyone, welcome to my talk. Today I'm here to show you how you can solve your mobile bugs with Session Replay. So my name is Michelle and I am a software engineer at Sentry. I've been here for about a year now and I work on the Session Replay and the user feedback teams. So to quickly go over the agenda for today, I'm going to first talk about what Sentry is in case you haven't heard of it before. And then I'll go through some demos showing how you can debug your mobile issues using Sentry and Session Replay. And then I'll do a deeper dive into what Session Replay really is. We have a web product and a brand new mobile product that's coming out soon. And then lastly, I'll talk about some of the unique mobile challenges that we faced while developing the mobile replay product. So first, what is Sentry? So if you haven't heard of Sentry before, we are an application and error monitoring platform built for developers like you. So our core goal is to help you surface issues that come in on your app. And when these issues come in, we want to provide a rich debugging context for you to solve those bugs faster. So for mobile specifically, that might mean something like what is the device battery level, or what's the orientation of the device, things like that. But more generically, it might mean leading to the exact line of code where the error happened, or a suspect commit. So where exactly in your commit history did this bug happen? We also have a lot of performance monitoring tools, which can help you discover insights and ways to improve your app. And lastly, we aim to help you ship with confidence. So Sentry has a lot of different products, and they're all integrated with each other, so they're not standalone, but you can also use them all together within the Sentry UI to have a very comprehensive debugging experience. So I mentioned we have error monitoring, but there's also performance monitoring tools and release insights, which can help you see whether your release was successful or whether there was a regression. We also have a very seamless and flexible integration with external platforms like GitHub and Jira. And lastly, we have Session Replay, which is the tool that I work on. And if you don't know what replay is, it's essentially a video-like reproduction of what the user was seeing when they encountered that error. So up until now, we've only had a web replay product, so for web platforms specifically, but we're coming out with a brand new mobile version built for mobile apps. And so I'm really excited to show you all the different features that we have for mobile replay. So one thing you should know about Sentry is that we are a developer-first company. So we love reaching out to developers like you on GitHub and Discord and all the different channels to ask for your feedback and iterate based on your feedback. So when we were first thinking about developing the mobile replay product, we went to GitHub and asked for your thoughts. And based on the reactions, it seemed like you all were really, really excited to get a mobile replay product and be able to use it in your debugging experience. And so this was actually one of our top most upvoted GitHub tickets in Sentry history. So that made me really excited to be able to work on this product for you all. So let's jump into a quick mobile demo of how you can debug your issues using Sentry and Session Replay. So for some context, the app that I'm showing is called Pocket Casts, and it is a podcast app that we forked an open source version of. And so we host and deploy it locally, and we just use this to test some of our mobile features that we're developing. So this is an example of a Sentry issue. If you haven't seen the UI before, this is kind of what most issues look like. So I'm going to walk through how I would debug this mobile issue with you. And it's an issue that came in for my Pocket Cast app that I just mentioned. So right away, let me zoom in. Right away, the title, I can see it says Sentry HTTP client exception. And I'm not too sure what that means right now. It's not too specific, but luckily Sentry has a lot of information on this page that can help me figure out how to solve this bug and dig deeper into it. So I'm going to scroll down to the stack trace. And for some Sentry issues, we actually have a really full stack trace that can kind of show you the exact code path that led to the exception being called in your code. But in this case, we don't have access to that. But we do have this little message here that says client error with status code 404. And so I know 404 means resource not found, but based on the information I've seen so far, I don't really know what resource it's referring to or what view this was called on, what request was made, things like that. So those are all kind of missing pieces of information so far. So I'm going to keep scrolling, and I hit the session replay section. And so this is immediately really different from everything we've seen so far. So it's a very visual picture. And if I click play, you can see that it's kind of like a video recording of what the user was seeing when they were on your app. And so we have this handy timeline here that kind of indicates when the error happened. And it looks like there were actually 2 errors that happened in this 10-second clip. And so the really powerful thing about replay is that you're able to see what happened before, during, and after the error. So it's really easy to understand what view they were on and how to reproduce this bug if you wanted to, because you can see this visual snapshot right here. So I'm going to jump into the full replay to give a deeper demo into all the different features that we have so far. So right away, it takes me to the errors tab. And so this is the error that we were just looking at. It's the Sentry HTTP client exception. And so it happened at around 36 seconds. And from the issue, I know that it's probably something to do with the network request. So I'm actually going to check out the network tab. And so I see that around 36 seconds, let me make this a little bigger. At around 36 seconds, there's this red row highlighted for me here. And so it's jumping out at me to click on it. So I'm going to click on it. And you can see that it has a URL field filled out for me. So now I know the exact URL that was being requested. I know the method and the status code 404, which we just saw. So with this URL, I now have a very tangible thing to look at when I'm trying to debug this later in my code. I know that this is the endpoint that had been hit, and it looks like there was some sort of error. So maybe that's related to the error that the user experienced. Another thing that I can do is check out the breadcrumbs tab. And so the breadcrumbs is kind of like an event timeline leading up to the error and also after the error. So I can click to a couple seconds before the error happened and just click play, sort of watch what is the user doing at this point, what are they tapping on, what views are they on. And so if you notice, the errors have already passed, and nothing really crazy happened in the replay. So it kind of seems like the errors happened in the background, which is good. The app didn't crash or anything. So this is something that I might use to prioritize the different issues that I'm trying to solve if I have a lot of bug requests coming in and I want to sort of prioritize which ones I'm fixing first. So if you notice in the replay that the app crashed, then you might want to prioritize that over something that happened in the background. And also, replay makes it really, really easy to share this information with other developers and other members of your team, even non-developers, because it's really easy to understand a video clip, right? Everyone can watch a video and understand what's going on, even if you don't understand the code. So replay makes it really, really easy to fill in those gaps for everyone, not just developers. So it's a pretty powerful product already, and it's actually not released to the public yet. So we're still working on some final features, and I wanted to highlight some of those features for you today. So I mentioned that we have a web replay product already, and it's been out for about 2 years now, so it's really polished and it has a lot of great features. And so we want to kind of add some of the same things to our mobile replay product. And those 3 things that I wanted to highlight today are rage and dead clicks, component names on user clicks, and tracing. So I'm going to show you a web replay to show you kind of what it looks like on the web right now and what it might look like for mobile. So this is our web replay, and it's a demo site that we have called Empower Plant. So the first thing that I mentioned is rage and dead clicks. So if you don't know what a rage click is, it's basically when a user clicks on something on a site and nothing happens for a good amount of time. So for example, if you're clicking submit on a form and nothing happens, it doesn't seem to go through, you might click a couple more times just to make sure the first click wasn't wrong. And so if you click a bunch of times and nothing happens, we consider that a rage click. So with rage clicks, they are usually a sign that something's problematic on your website, because either the user is clicking on something like a button or a link and it should take them somewhere, but nothing happens, or they're clicking on something that shouldn't be clicked on, so like a misleading UX element. And so you might want to take a look at that, and maybe it should be more clear what to do there. So rage clicks are really useful and a great indicator of potentially UX problems on your website. So when these rage clicks come in, we send a breadcrumb. And so it kind of looks like this. And if you notice, we hover over the breadcrumb, and on the left, you can see the submit button being highlighted. So that just means that that's the button that's being clicked on. And you can also just click play on the replay and watch the user clicking a bunch on submit and nothing's happening. So we want to do the same kind of thing for mobile, but instead of clicks, it's taps. And that kind of brings me to the next thing that I wanted to highlight, which is these little code snippets for our user click breadcrumbs. So with the click breadcrumbs, we have this selector path here, but sometimes it's hard to understand what's going on. It's hard to kind of decipher what it's even referring to. But with this code snippet, you can easily see all the different attributes that you've set yourself directly in the code. So, for example, I can see that this button is defined in nav.jsx. And so if I want to search for this button in my code base, it's really easy. I just search for the file. So this is something that we want to bring to React Native replays specifically, because we can do something similar with app components that are being tapped on. And the last thing I wanted to highlight is our trace tab. So the trace tab is really useful because you can see kind of all the different requests that are happening on the front end and the back end. So for example, this was a navigation transaction on the front end, and then this is some sort of server request on the back end. So you can see what contributed to a long and slow page load, for example. And for example, this one seemed to error out. So it includes all that information in one place for you. So those were some of the things on web that we have already that we want to bring over to our mobile replays. And there are also some mobile-specific features that we're currently working on. So the first is offline support. And that just means that when a device goes offline, it doesn't have connectivity, we want to continue sending those replays to Sentry, because that could be some crucial information for developers if there was a bug that occurred. And the second is auto-sending replays when ANR, or application not responding, errors occur. So this is something that's Android-specific, and you probably know that when these errors occur, the user has the option of either closing the app or waiting it out. And so we want to send replays for as long as possible until they choose to close the app. So that kind of brings me to the discussion on the unique mobile challenges that we faced while developing the mobile replay product. And as it turns out, it's really, really different from the web implementation. So the key difference between web and mobile is that for web, we use something called RRWeb. And RRWeb is basically a library that captures the DOM changes and it creates the video using those. So that is what is the mechanism behind the feature, the web replay features that I just showed you. So for mobile, we don't have this concept of DOM. So we actually had to do something different and create our own class called video replayer. So this is just something that's Sentry specific. So when we were first thinking about how to even send these videos, the first thing that might come to mind is just sending like a screen recording. But if you think about hour-long replays, that means an hour-long video, which is way too huge. So what we do actually is we send screenshots from the SDK whenever the app content changes, and these screenshots are sent at around 1 frame per second, but you can actually configure that if you want a higher frame rate. And so then these screenshots are turned into a video HTML element. And so that's why we call it a video replayer. But it turns out we actually still needed RRWeb for our mobile replays. And that's because we wanted to show gestures on the screen. So what I mean by gestures is this kind of purple tap circle, and then the trail that follows it on the screen. And so this shows where the user is interacting with the screen. So we wanted to show this for mobile, but we need RRWeb to generate this kind of content. So the problem was we already had our video replayer class that we built custom for our screenshots, turning into videos, but we still needed an R web player. So what we ended up doing was combining them into one class. So when we have a mobile replay, we're actually using 2 players at once, one for the video and then one for the gestures. And the unique thing about mobile is that you have multiple gestures, or you can have multiple gestures on the screen at one time. So if you imagine when you are surfing the web and you're using your mouse, you only have one mouse. You don't need multiple mice interaction at a time. So our web is really only built to show one mouse interaction at a time. But for mobile, it's a little different because you could be pinching with multiple fingers, you could be swiping with 3 fingers, for example. And so we wanted to show this information in our replays because it's really useful and it's just interesting to see. So in order to allow those multi-gestures to be shown, we had to modify the R web code to kind of allow for that. And so that was another really interesting challenge that we had to work through. And you might have noticed that on the previous slide, I had a GIF of the Pocket Cast app, but it didn't really look like the Pocket Cast app. It looked kind of like the thing on the left, where everything's blocked out, and it's like a bunch of squares, rectangles, but on the right is kind of what the podcast app actually looks like. And so on the left is actually what you would see if you set up a replay without any configuration. So by default, Sentry chooses to block out everything that could be potentially private information from your users. So for example, like a profile photo or a username, any sort of private sensitive information, we choose to be as protective as possible because we know that it could be potentially private. So by default, we choose to block everything out of the box. But if you know that something is okay to expose, such as a static logo or a piece of text that's always the same, then you can definitely configure that in your code. So it's really easy to configure, but out of the box, we choose to protect everything. And the way that we block everything is really different from web. So with web, our web kind of does the masking and the blocking for us. But on mobile, we had to do it ourselves. So we choose to take the average of the colors of the pixels in that area. And then when we take that average, that's the color that we end up putting in the box. So just an interesting tidbit about the blocking. So that's a little bit about how we developed the mobile replay product. And if you'd like to learn more about Sentry, try it out. There's a QR code on the left that will take you to our website. And you can use the code droidcon SF24 for 3 months free of our business plan. And if you'd like to sign up for the mobile replay waitlist, which is currently for our beta product that we're working towards, then the QR code on the right will take you to our waitlist. And we're currently developing for Android and iOS and React Native. But if you don't see your preferred SDK on the screen, then definitely reach out to us and we'd be happy to work on it. And we also have a booth downstairs. And so if you have any questions or want to talk to us further, then definitely come visit us. We're downstairs by, I guess, the first conference room. So yeah, thank you.